Okay, I'm live. I'm going minimal on this occasion. I just want to know if you can hear me out there. If anybody's coming into the stream, and I'm not doing any fanfare right now. I just want somebody to tell me. Put a one in the chat if you can actually hear me, because I'm on a different computer right now. But I wanted to set something straight. So if you're out there and you can hear anything that I'm saying, please put a one in the chat. If you can hear my voice. Okay, cool. You can hear my voice. That's cool. All right, is my voice clear? That's the second question. If my voice is clear, I'm going to continue to run and disregard the stream elements because I'm not even really tripping off that right now. So if my voice is clear and everything is straight, then let me get on. So look, recently, I had Dr. Johnson on the show. I had Ronald Neal on the show, and we were talking about the Black National Convention in Gary, Indiana. And ultimately, that conversation basically rested upon or hinged upon, our discussion of Black nationalism and how it was a paramount political ideology held amongst Black activists, Black politicians, Black artists, so on and so forth, man, in the early 70s, even up until the early 80s. But some people just, regarded or kind of pulled back from Black nationalism during the early 80s or the mid 80s. Okay. Now, I'm just trying to put forth the idea, man, that, yeah, Black people directly after segregation were imbued with the spirit of Black nationalism. It's a fact. It's not something that I'm making up, I'm cooking up, I'm, ignorant about. This is just the reality, man. Okay. And in order to try to explain, because there, one person commented and said that I really don't have a good understanding of what Black nationalism is, and that, Jesse Jackson actually wasn't a Black nationalist. Now, in 1984, Jesse Jackson kind of pulled back from Black nationalism, but I left a video for you to watch at your leisure to see, to actually understand and comprehend that, yes, Jesse Jackson was at one time a Black nationalist. These are the facts, man. All you got to do is look at the video and you'll see the kind of language and the rhetoric he's employing is the language and rhetoric of a Black nationalist. I don't know why I have to go over this, but I'm going over it so that I can actually be clear. And that there's no illusions, no misunderstandings, no discrepancies, none of that. Because, basically, man, we have been studying Black politics, Black ideology, Black theory for decades. So if we say, or if I say, rather, I'm not going to put anybody else into it. If I say Jesse Jackson was a Black nationalist, especially during the Black National Convention, and that the convention was centered or rallied around the whole political concept or idea of Black nationalism, it is what it is. I'm not imagining this. I'm not confused about this. This is what it was. Okay? So I'm going to give you, from an academic point of view, and this is not going to take long. This should take less than 15 to 20 minutes for me to actually read through this document. But it'll give you an understanding of what Black nationalism actually is from a philosophical point of view. And, philosophers are keen on being precise in the way that they define and they understand things. This is what they do. So to leave no room for error, I'm going to go over this so, whoever might be, in disagreement, so they can understand, yes, these people were Black nationalists. Okay? It just is what it is. So let me go over this, man, so I can be done and get back to eating my chicken, man. It's Sunday. I'm about to, eat my chicken. So anyway, let me get right to this. So this is an essay from a philosopher. His name is Tommy Shelby. I kind of read some of his stuff before online, but this article was published by Political Theory, which is a pretty prestigious, journal. and he's a professor at Harvard University. He's a black dude, black philosopher, okay? And I'm not going to read the abstract or anything like that. All I'm going to do is just read the main text, okay? And the text basically is going to demonstrate the ways in which black nationalism is understood amongst people who theorize about it, okay? So the article begins and it says, in response to new political challenges and changing social conditions for African Americans, a number of progressive political theorists have recently begun to re-envisage black politics. They're looking at it again, right? They want to modernize the social philosophy, objectives, and strategies of black freedom struggles for post-civil rights. Okay, the era, okay? There are many important aspects to this rethinking, but at least part of it must involve reconstructing black politics so that it both rests on anti-essentialist and non-racialist foundations, and at the same time maintains its commitment to defeating racism and to improving the life chances of those racialized as black, especially the most disadvantaged of these. So anyway, he's saying, okay, we got to look back at black nationalism. We got to re-examine it, okay? And we have to reconstruct black politics so that it's not based upon this essentialist notion of blackness. Now, I don't know if I agree with that totally, but the reality is, most people don't want to place an essence on blackness because they feel like, okay, if you do that, then, it's leaving open, a Trojan horse door. It's like a Trojan horse because then they can say things that are essentially flawed about us as a race. And then we try to use, racism as a charge against white people. But how can we do that if we're clinging ourselves to these essentialist notions of what it means to be black? So at least that's the way the thinking goes. Anyway, and then the last part of this sentence here, right here where it says, maintains a commitment or its commitment to defeating racism and to improve the life chances of those racialized as black, especially the most disadvantaged of these. That's important because, most people who theorize about black politics are going to look at those who are the least advantaged. But a lot of you guys, I'm just being honest here, man. A lot of you guys have a lot of negative things to say about, people who are poor and people who are in a downtrodden condition who are black. And it's unfortunate, man, that y'all do this. I don't understand why you do it, but you continuously do it. You talk deprecatingly about these people. It's almost as if you're utilizing the same language as white people who were like, like the statesmen during Jim Crow. Or people who, were making these essentialist arguments in order to justify slavery. Oh, well, them people right there, them not real black people, or them pookies and they ray-rays, or, it's that language, man. It's almost racist. It comes from a racist place. To be perfectly honest, I think it's anti-black misandry when it's done. That's just my opinion, okay? But anyway, he goes on to say, however, it might seem that one obstacle to carrying this program forward is the continuing persistence of black nationalist ideas within black political thought and culture. So black nationalism keeps resurfacing, right? It's persistent. And some say, okay, well, because this thing keeps coming or resurfacing, keeps coming back, that it's an impediment to, redoing black politics, rethinking it, right? So then he goes on to say, black nationalism is an ideology or philosophy, or as an ideology or philosophy is one of the oldest and most enduring traditions in American political thought. Black nationalists advocate such things as black self-determination, meaning you govern yourself, racial solidarity. So we got self-determination, black solidarity, group reliance, voluntary racial separation, Pride in the historic achievements of those of African descent. A concerted effort to overcome racial self-hate and to instill Black love. Militant resistance to anti-Black racism. The development and preservation of a distinctive ethno-cultural identity and the recognition of Africa as the true homeland of those who are racially Black. So you got all that there, okay? So this is what Black advocates, Black nationalists, things that Black nationalists advocate. Now, not all Black nationalists advocate all of these points or each one of these axiological commitments. They don't have them. Some have some, and then some discard the others. But this is why I said in the context of the video that Black nationalism is not a monolith. There's no cohesive doctrine about what it actually is. There's no uniform definition of what exactly it is. But some people have this preconceived notion that they know exactly what it is. Even more so than people who've actually studied it for decades. But, needless to say, some of these ideas, though perhaps not all, would seem to be at odds with the goal of transforming Black politics, for they appear to reify the dubious category of race, to assume the existence of a transhistorical and organic Black essence, or to imply the desirability of an authentic and unitary Black plural subject called the Black community. Some of y'all call it the community or whatever, okay? Some theorists, such as Kwame Anthony Appiah, and Paul Gilroy, have challenged the continuing currency of these racialist ideas by attempting to dismantle and discredit Black nationalism altogether, meaning they don't like it at all, okay? They want to get rid of it altogether. Okay? Putting forward a radical critique of what they take to be its various conceptual, empirical, and moral flaws. However, this strategy is unlikely to be effective, for there are strains of Black nationalism that are a constitutive part or component of the self-understanding and political orientation of a substantial segment of the African American population. So in other words, it's not really convincing to most Black people what Kwame Anthony Appiah are saying about its empirical, moral, or conceptual flaws, or Paul Gilroy for that matter. Because there are a great portion of Black people who subscribe to this idea, this Black nationalistic idea. And he goes on to say that these strains run so deep for so many Blacks that an uncompromising and comprehensive attack on them will surely be met with hostility or suspicion. If we are to avoid alienating potential allies and thereby further fragmenting the collective fight for Black liberation, then we should opt for a more constructive form of critique, one that highlights the tensions and weaknesses within the Black nationalist orientation, but that also seeks to draw out and build upon important truths within this established outlook. The transformation of the political consciousness of Black Americans, or any group for that matter, is more likely to come about if the new vision can be understood or comprehended as an extension of, rather than a radical break with or rupture with, traditional self-understandings of the group. So it's going to be easier for you to tether your new politics to some degree with the old, instead of trying to make some radical break with the old politics. Because where is it coming from? There's nothing to ground it, to basically undergird it. But anyway, the discussion of Black nationalism in this essay focuses primarily on its commitment to Black solidarity, Black political solidarity, as this commitment is a necessary component of all versions of the social philosophy, namely the social philosophy of Black nationalism, And some such form of solidarity arguably underpins any kind of black politics. Otherwise, what you talking about? If there's no solidarity in it, then what politics is it at all? Okay? So then he goes on to say black nationalist discourses suggest a number of bases for political solidarity, typically organized around some particular and always contested concept of blackness. Many of these ways of conceptualizing the normative foundations and political significance of black unity are, to be sure, either unsound or impractical for contemporary African American politics. But through an examination of the work of an early and influential black nationalist theoretician, I will show that there is a concept of black solidarity with roots in the black nationalist tradition that is still viable and even politically necessary. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say that. All I'm going to do is just basically show you how academicians really actually define and how they understand black nationalism before we get called out on the fact that we don't know what we're talking about. We know what we're talking about when we say what we say, because we read. We don't just do Google searches and then the first 10 things that pop up based on the SEO, we make some sort of proclamation or some statement. No, we've been reading like academic literature about this subject matter for years. So when we present it to you, it's not like we're trying to sneak something in that's not there. It's like we read it. We know it in its intricacies and intimacies in ways that you probably don't because you haven't done it. Not to say that you're dumb or something like that, but it's like, dude, if we tell you as experts in an area, this is something that we know, and this individual is espousing this viewpoint, bruh, unless you got some real academic or some rigorous evidence to the contrary, dude, you're talking out the side of your neck, man. You're being disagreeable to be disagreeable. But anyway, let me go on. So he goes on to talk about what he considers to be Delaney's two nationalism. Okay, so he says the mid-19th century militant abolitionist Martin Delaney was born free in Charlestown in what is now West Virginia. He was not only a well-known activist, physician, novelist, journalist, African explorer, and politician, but more importantly for our purposes, he is widely regarded as the father of black nationalist theory. The ancestral appellation is quite appropriate, for not only is practically every core tenet of black nationalist thought prefigured in his writings, but like Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X after him, Delaney was a central spokesperson, charismatic leader, and principal architect of a movement for blacks to establish a separate nation state. So this is going to be important when I say this. He was a proponent or the initial architect of this whole idea of blacks needing to have their own state, their own nation state. So this is before the Nation of Islam, is before Garvey. Okay. In 1852, Delaney published the first book-length defense of African American immigration away from the U.S. He's the first person to formally do this. Okay. We're talking about before the Civil War, dog, before. Okay. Urging blacks to act collectively to form an independent republic. This influential work, The Condition, Elevation, Immigration, and Destiny of the Colored People of the United States, strongly encouraged free and fugitive blacks to leave the United States in order to avoid oppression and to build a sovereign nation state that would enable blacks to live under conditions of equality and liberty. The book was written in the wake of the draconian fugitive slave law, a component of the notorious 1850 Compromise, which enabled slaveholders to pursue runaway slaves even in non-slave holding territories, and which in effect made free blacks even more vulnerable to being enslaved, as they would have no reliable legal recourse should some slaveholder falsely claim them as fugitive property. So they, I mean, you know, this was a bad law. So on the crest of that decision, you know, basically this was published. So anyway, this white supremacist tactic caused the budding mass movement for black immigration to grow and be energized. So you're talking about people like, man, we need to get out of here. This is not a safe haven for us. We need to burn out and form our own state. Not unreasonable given the conditions that they were mired in. But anyway, in the condition, Delaney famously describes blacks in the U.S. as an oppressed nation within a nation. These subjugated internal nations are, he claims, unjustly deprived of social and political equality by the ruling classes. They are subject to the most naked and brutal exploitation, and they are often restricted to the most devalued positions within the society in which they live and work. Moreover, in order to legitimate its dominant status, the ruling elite regards these subordinate nations as inherently inferior and thereby incapable of self-government. Now, it is clear why Delaney would regard blacks in the United States as a severely oppressed people, perhaps even a stigmatized caste. However, it is less obvious and somewhat puzzling why he would choose to characterize them as a nation. Moving beyond the pithy and influential slogan, I want to clarify Delaney's conception of black nationality in his program for nation building. I will do so by discussing two black nationalist doctrines that are advanced in Delaney's writings. On the one hand, there is strong black nationalism. Let me make it a little bit larger. Strong black nationalism, because it got kind of small. Strong black nationalism. The political program of black solidarity and voluntary separation under conditions of equality and self-determination, right, is a worthwhile end in itself, a constitutive and enduring component of the collective self-realization of blacks as a people. So that's strong black nationalism, right? Separating ourselves voluntarily and having a program of solidarity where we are all equal and where we are self-determining and autonomous is a worthwhile goal in and of itself. And if we're to self-realize, we have to do that. That's strong black nationalism, right? Then on the other hand, there's something called weak black nationalism. The political program of black solidarity and group self-organization is a strategy for creating greater freedom and social equality for blacks. So let me make it small again so I can read the rest of it. Now, this philosopher, he's an analytic philosopher. They hair split. They speak in precise terms. So anyway, he's basically saying these two doctrines are not incompatible. Strong nationalism is not incompatible with weak nationalism. He goes on to say, since one might value black political solidarity as both a means and end. And of course, many black nationalists hold this two-pronged view. But it is important to see that the two positions, if taken separately, would have quite different practical implications. Strong black nationalism treats the establishment of an independent black republic or a separate self-determining community as an intrinsic goal of black liberation struggles. It advocates the development of a national identity, black self-reliance, and separatism, not only as a means to racial justice, but as the political destiny of African Americans and perhaps all those of African descent. So that's strong black nationalism, which advocates for the establishment of an independent black republic. But then there's weak nationalism, which urges black solidarity and concerted action as a political strategy to lift or resist oppression. This could, of course, mean forming a self-governing black nation state or a separate self-determining community within a multinational state. But it can also mean working to create a racially integrated society or even a post-racial polity. This is important. So weak nationalism could imply, right, forming a self-governing black nation state or a separate self-determining community within an existing state. It can also mean working to create a racially integrated society or a post-racial society. That's important. So when we say that Jesse Jackson was a black nationalist, go back and look at what he's saying. He's asking for people to have solidarity. He's asking for people to be self-determining. He's asking for people to be able to utilize their economic and political power in order to bring about the end of making their interests met. You go look at it. I don't understand, like, basically, Jesse Jackson is a proponent of weak nationalism at this point. You don't hear any of these people there saying, let's go back to Africa. Not any of them said that, man. None of them said that. Even in the context of the speech, Jesse Jackson made mention of the fact. He said, look, bruh, if we were a nation, we would be second only to Nigeria and Ethiopia in terms of numbers. We'd be the third largest black nation, period. Third only to Kenya, or not Kenya, but third only to Nigeria and Ethiopia. Now go look at what he says now. I mean, he's making it clear. He's not saying let's go back to Liberia. He ain't saying let's go back to repatriate with Africans. He's saying let's utilize our political power here in the United States. That's what he's saying. So I would argue that Jesse Jackson is a weak black nationalist. He ain't like the Nation of Islam calling for the American government to give black people a separate parcel of land so they can govern and rule over it by themselves. Anyway, he says we might call the strong nationalist position classical nationalism, and let us call anyone who views black political solidarity as merely a contingent means for bringing about social justice a pragmatic nationalist. The solidaristic commitment of pragmatic nationalism is based on a desire to live in a just society, a society that need not be or even contain a self-determining black community. But if you look at what these people are saying, they definitely are advocating self-determinism. They're definitely having conversations about political autonomy and economic autonomy. At least Jesse Jackson. Anyway, notice that the program of black immigration from the United States is consistent with both forms of nationalism. On a classical view, immigration to build a black republic would be seen as desirable in itself, that is, apart from the desire to escape the suffering caused by injustice, whereas pragmatic immigrationism would treat it as a mere means to fight or avoid oppression, a strategy that could be discarded if another one appeared more promising. So then he goes on to say, given these distinctions, my primary contention is that Delaney vacillated, which means he moved back and forth, between and perhaps even confused classical nationalism and pragmatic nationalism, and that this tendency is characteristic of the black nationalist tradition in general. While I will here focus my discussion on Delaney's nationalisms, my general hypothesis is this, and this is what the author is stating himself. Classical nationalism is often merely a defensive and rhetorical posture that is taken up so that the proponent is not seen as merely reacting to white dominance, but as asserting the equal rights of blacks to collective self-determination along other would-be nations. So that's his hypothesis. That's Tommy Shelby's hypothesis. It's not merely reacting to white dominance, but we have the equal right to be collectively self-determining just like anybody else, any other group of people would. So that's classical, right? Nationalism, perhaps, okay? But then he goes on to say pragmatic nationalism, on the other hand, is more consistently defended and firmly held by many self-styled Black nationalists, despite the fact that they occasionally evince or talk about or speak as if they're promoting the classical form. In support of this diagnosis, I will demonstrate that Delaney exemplifies this wavering tendency, goes back and forth. My strategy shall be to reconstruct the arguments he offers in favor of each of the two doctrines, and then show that, contrary to standard interpretations, he is most deeply committed to pragmatic Black nationalism, notwithstanding his occasional lapses into the discourse of classical nationalism. But before proceeding to that account, let me briefly address the following concern. Some might think that pragmatic nationalism, as here defined, is not strictly speaking a form of nationalism at all, since this form of Black politics isn't necessarily tied to claims of territorial sovereignty or collective self-government, as many, perhaps most nationalisms are. As Eddie Glaude has convincingly shown, however, the meaning of the language of nation in early 19th century Black political thought was intensely contested, as it still is today, with several prominent Black leaders advocating what I'm here calling a pragmatic conception of Black nationhood. Delaney, the widely acknowledged progenitor of Black nationalist theory, was among those struggling to define a conception of Black nationality that could be used for emancipatory purposes. And his nationalism, as I will demonstrate, sometimes fell short of a demand for Black sovereignty. Accordingly, I maintain that when the idiom of nationhood is deployed to define a people, to identify its collective self-interest and will, and to create bonds of political solidarity among those in this would-be community, the label of nationalism is appropriate, even if the political goal is not necessarily the creation of a separate self-determining corporate unit. Let me repeat that, bruh. The label of nationalism is appropriate, even if the goal is not necessarily the creation of a damn separate corporate body. Then he has like footnotes and stuff like this of people who talk about nationalism, not even just Black folks, but people, philosophers in general, political theorists, who talk about nationalism as not necessarily necessitating, not necessarily advocating the creation of a separate geographical, territorial nation state. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be what weak nationalism is talking about or discussing, which is, if I have to go back to it, weak nationalism urges Black solidarity and concerted action as a political strategy to lift or resist oppression. Now, it could entail having a separate nation state or not. It could have a separate self-determining community within a nation state. It could also mean working to have a racially integrated society or even a post-racial society. So I hope that clarifies things, man. Because people are telling me I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, I got nationalism confused. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Man, I understand it perfectly well. I know what it is I'm talking about. I'm not talking out of the side of my neck. I'm trying to give you information on what this shit actually is, bro. That's all I'm trying to do. It just kills me, man. Every time I try to make a statement or we try to give you some information, the first thing people do is they run to the internet or, to like what they read, like a ad hoc way, and then try to say, well, you're wrong. Bruh, we've been looking at this shit for a long time, bro. We know what we're talking about. Jesse Jackson was a black nationalist in the 1970s, bruh. Bottom line. It is what it is. And then there are some people who say, well, what about this solidarity and collectivity? Like, black people don't all live in one area and all of this. Look, man, we talking about people who had a meeting how long ago? In the 70s, bro. When was the Fair Housing Act passed, bro? Can anybody tell me that? I got to do something real quick. I want somebody to tell me when the Fair Housing Act was. When was it passed, bro? I'll be right back. Fair Housing Act. When was it passed, bro? When was the Fair Housing Act passed, bro? I'll be right back. All right, I'm back, man. I had to take a break for a quick second, man, and do something. But it was 1968, bro. That was when the Fair Housing Act was passed, bro. So I'm here to tell you, a lot of people talk about how, blacks are different. Like, you got like hood blacks, and then you got, suburban blacks and shit like that. Like, one guy made mention of that claim in the comment section of the video I posted. Like, bro, how many black people do you think existed or lived in the suburbs in 1972, bro? I'm just saying, man. People are not even thinking this shit through, bro. I'm just saying, bro. Like, how many black people, man? Look, I'm gonna tell you right now, to be absolutely honest, I would say that maybe approximately 1 million black people lived in the suburbs in the 1970s, bro. In the early 1970s, give or take. No more than 1 million black people, if that many. And if they did try to move there in the early 70s, man, 4 years removed from the Fair Housing Act, bruh, they liable to have a damn a cross burning in front of their house, dog. They still had restrictive covenants. They still were block busting and redlining, bro. I guarantee you, I dare anybody to come up here and tell me that they great grandparents had a house in the suburbs and they was black. I want to know whose family lived in the suburbs, bruh, in the 40s and the 30s, bruh. The damn suburbs wasn't even fucking created in the 30s and the 40s, bruh. This shit kills me, man. Oh, well, we're culturally different than the niggers in the hood. Like, really, bro? How is that possible, man? In the 70s, bro. Well, we have a different kind of interest in those people in those areas. How can you, bro? We talking about 1972, bro. Why would black people at that particular point in time want to have conversations about what the fuck is happening in the suburbs, bro? Why? Why, bro? I'm guaranteeing you, man. Go ask your mama, your daddy, your granddaddy, when the fuck did they get a house in the suburbs? If they got one. I guarantee you, bro. I guarantee you, bro. I guarantee you they just moved to the suburbs within 1 or 2 generations, bro. At the most 3 generations. That's it, man. We talking about within the past 50 to 60 years, dude. Now you got uppity niggas talking about, oh, we have a different value system than those niggers. We different than them people who live in the inner city. Man, we all live together, man. We all lived in a segregated state for the most part, either in the South when we moved to the North and to the Midwest, we were corralled into the ghettos, bro. Less than 5% of black people had any tethers at all to the so-called suburbs. And right now, the collective population of blacks in the United States is somewhere around 40 million, dog. Back then, it was only 20 million, bro. I don't know, I ain't good at math like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a rocket scientist, but I do know that probably damn near, bro. That's only 5% of the black population. 5% of the black population. So if it's about solidarity, if we talking about black nationalism and solidarity, and only 5% of the black population lives in the fucking suburbs, then why would black people at the Black National Convention be having a fucking conversation about black motherfuckers living in the suburbs, dog? Why? I'm just saying, man, this is the shit that it fucks my brain up, man, how politically naive, like how short-sighted people are when they start talking about politics, man. Real talk, it just fucks me up, man. I swear to God it does, man. I just don't get it, man. I'm lost on it. Now, anybody, anybody can come here and tell me something different if you want to. I'll leave a link right now. If you want to come in and tell me I'm wrong, I'm tripping, I'm lying, I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to leave a link. Don't disregard the stream elements. I want somebody to come here and tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. I want somebody to tell me. What are we supposed to be having a conversation about in 1972, looking out for the interests of blacks in the suburbs? Most Negroes didn't even live there, like I said, bro. So yes, the people at the Black National Convention in Gary, Indiana, were talking about black nationalism, bro. It wasn't the radical kind espoused by Elijah Muhammad or Martin Delaney, even when he talks about classical nationalism. But at least it was like, hey, we need to galvanize, we need to be solidaristic so that we can compete and that we can get what we're owed by the government in this country. If we are part of the Democratic Party, we make up 20% of the voter constituency for that party, well, we need 20% of the boons that come from being a member of that party. Otherwise, we'll go elsewhere. These are the kind of things they were talking about, man.
Good evening.
What's up, man? What's happening?
I'm good. Just came here saying what's up. I did see the link you posted of the actual convention that happened now 50 years ago on your channel. Right. I had to watch it really, but I was actually, to be honest with you, I came up here because I was going back on a replay you did 2 days ago with you and the other doctors, the PhDs. I know you're the oldest out of all of them, the two. That it's interesting that nationalism, as we looked at it and looking back 50 years later, that it really is dead since after integration.
Well, it's dead because black people killed it.
They killed it, yeah. And a lot of people think that it was never killed, but now to find that they had this back in the 70s, now we have to really examine what really black people really fighting for now in America now in the 21st century. You know, your great scholars, elders, they just decided to the hell with it long time ago. It makes it question everything, even the what they call B1, all this nonsense, that now it makes perfect sense.
But look, you're never going to fully get rid of the whole sentimentality of nationalism. You're not going to get rid of it as long as you got black people who live in the United States. Like, you're not going to get, nobody's asking for Latinos to not be thinking about what's good for the Latino community. Nobody's asking for people who belong to the LGBTQ community to not look out for the interest of the people in the LGBTQ community. Yeah. Nobody's asking for black women who basically have declared that, you know, we don't like black nationalism because it's unifying to an extent to which it's violence because it just ignores what we want. Nobody's telling them to shirk their interest. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's saying, oh, you need to stop with this black stuff, or you need to stop with, black woman stuff, or the black LGBTQ2, BT, whatever. And nobody's asking, the Asians to stop or anybody else. The only people who get asked to stop is us. We're the only people, especially the variant of black nationalism that we advocate, the solidarity that we talk about. You had Ice Cube, who basically said we got a plan for Black America. Who was the first people to reject it?
Those no good wall stage females that have not kept man, hold a man, and are single. The ones that did it.
Who? I'm just saying.
Now, mind you, Green Grill, I heard from most people when women watch that, they say, well, those are just them women on Fox News that's been bought off and compromised. And I'm thinking, but these are representations that are paid for that's representing black people. Because they don't look at average black people in America that's doing this. They look at people that's the celebrities, these type of people, as a representation of black people. Correct?
Man, I guess to a certain extent, but
that's what people are thinking and assuming. So when anyone's play that, they gonna fix it. Well, that's just them females. That's not all black Americans, especially in regards to women. And I'm saying black people look up to these type of people. So if they said that Ice Cube said that he's doing this for all black people, and they say no, that they are separate from black men and children, then that tells you right there that's where they're at. And no one has to tell them that. No one has to tell them that. They actually declare that.
But you know what? I'm just gonna keep it 100 though. Like, okay, like Ice Cube has a history with the Nation of Islam and has a connection. He's tethered to Public Enemy, and I mean musically, because they kind of like his production team kind of took him on after he left, NWA and Ruthless Records, and they kind of took him under his wing, and he started talking this pro-black radical. Politics. I mean, he started advocating for that, right? So that's the tradition of Ice Cube. Now, he basically was connected to the nation, right? The Nation of Islam. But man, tell me what average black person today. I ain't even talking about black women in general, but I'm just saying black people in general who want to say that what the Nation of Islam is talking about is something I'm ready to buy into.
Hard for me to name.
When you roll past somebody with a final call selling bean pies, or you like, yeah, I need to see what the minister's saying. We need to organize.
Yeah.
Or do you see people saying, man, fuck all that black shit, man?
Yeah.
I mean, it's honest. Like, okay, but you couldn't say that in the 70s. You're talking about you was only 6 years removed or 8 years removed from, basically the Civil Rights Act. Your ass still had to drink from a separate water fountain. So you had a cultural memory of segregation. Now
Yeah.
you got these new people, man. Like we're the new generation X is the generation, man, who grew up without having to deal with the memory of segregation. So for us, it ain't about solidarity at all. All for us, it's getting ours, getting the bag.
Yeah.
And that goes for males and females. I'm just saying, I mean, like, I want somebody to tell me I'm wrong about this. We talk this black male shit, but the only thing that makes us black is what? That we got black skin?
That's pretty much it.
I'm just asking the question. Because there is no cohesive politics, bro. Even back then, them brothers, man, they already were at the crest of cooperating and organizing and doing, political work. It was a necessity for them. There was a prevailing obligation, a moral duty to preserve their own human dignity. And then the question is, after the post-civil rights era, what is the political strategy? They tried to carve one out. Black men and women together. It wasn't just a black man thing. It was black men and women at that convention. Then it became about everything else but what's black. And especially the guys in the suburbs, the children of the motherfuckers that moved to the suburbs, dog. I hate to say it, man. A lot of y'all some uppity niggas, man. I'm just keeping it 100, dog. You can say what you want to. You can feel how you want to feel. You use the same language as the oppressors, man. Using the same language as these crackers, man. Talking about uncivilized savages. Now, some of the shit that they doing is fucked up. I can see if you was like the Black Panthers, we about to go in here and straighten this shit out. You can join it. Look, bro, I'm not saying that like everybody from the suburbs is like, using that kind of language and thinking in that kind of way. I'm not saying that. But all I'm saying is some of y'all, the way y'all sound like white people, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm just keeping it 100, bro. I'm just keeping it absolutely 100, bro. Mm-hmm. And and then like the term gets thrown around like these groups, like SNCC and the SCLs, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, like these people were Marxists. We got to watch out for them. They had the wrong economic ideology, bruh. Come on, man. Like you got to think. You had black people, man, getting a fucking necks ring, man, literally hung from trees. They was clinging to anything that was the opposite of the economic and the political structure in the United States, bro.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to gravitate towards anybody who would give them resources. It just so happened that the Soviet Union, them people, the communist Russians, they were willing to fund the organizing efforts of a lot of these black folks here in the United States, bro. Whether it was disingenuous and only done in order to, besmirch the reputation of the white people, the politicians in the U.S. or whatever it was, whatever their motivation was, they gave money to these groups, man. They funded and bankrolled some of these groups, bro.
Mm-hmm.
These are the facts. So what would you rather do? Go back to a time when, you basically didn't have that organization bump or that influence from these groups, from this so-called ideology. What would you rather go back to drinking from a separate but equal water fountain and shit?
I don't know if anyone's really ready for that separation stuff right now in the 21st century, to be honest with you. Most niggas,
these people, they were forcibly separated, bro. It's a privilege right now for a person to be able to say, I don't want to hang out with these black people. They're the lower, they're the lower type of people, or whatever the case may be. They're undesirable and incorrigible. Mm-hmm. It's a privilege for you to be able to say that now. Yeah. You couldn't say it. You couldn't say it in the 40s and the 50s.
No, you couldn't say it.
You couldn't go nowhere else. Where was you gonna go? You going to Beverly Hills? You wasn't doing it, bro. I mean, bottom line, you wasn't gonna be able to do it, bro. Your ass didn't have anywhere to go other than to deal with black people holistically. That's all you had. So we're talking about a convention that was held 8 years apart from the Civil Rights Act, man. Mm-hmm. And then you got Negroes talking about, well, you know, why we talking about the inner city? Mm-hmm. I'm confused, bro. Like the shit that I hear from dudes in this space, man, fucks my brain up sometimes. I'm like, do these people read? It's like Jay-Z said, man, do you listen to rap music or do you just skim through it, bro?
Well, you know the answer, GT. Negroes don't read, man. Shit. It's already even get a certain Go ahead.
But the shit I'm saying though, you don't even have to read to understand that if the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act were passed in the middle of the 60s, it wasn't no Negroes for real living in the suburbs. Yeah. You should be able to use your brain to just common sense to understand that. You might have had relatives in Alabama, Mississippi, you know what I'm saying? Louisiana, Georgia. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? Like you might have like little communities there, but living with white people like Leave It to Beaver, like Mary and Ward Cleaver, dog, you wasn't there. Mm-hmm. You wasn't in there. You didn't have the opportunity to be there. And even if you did have the money to move there, if you did move there, they was gonna give you the chill, bro. They was gonna be like, "What the fuck you doing here?"
Yep. You get that what they call it? You get that creep look to they're gonna give you that look, that stare. I said, "What you doing here, Negro?"
And thank you, brother. Look, I only meant to be here for a short period of time. I ain't even want to even come here for a hell of a long time. But I'm just trying to make a clarification. People telling me I don't know what I'm talking about when I say that Jesse Jackson was advocating black nationalism. Or that this convention. First of all, they are asking the question, what time is it? It's nation time. Nation time for what? Nation time for who? Nation time under what general rubric, what framework, what heuristic, what ideology? This is what fucks me up about dudes in the space sometimes. I'm like, man, what the fuck are y'all talking about? Y'all just, you want to be contrary for the sake of just being contrary. Yeah, coach, I'm from the Lou, bro. I say here, there, everywhere, all that. I'm straight from there. I'm from there. But I mean, you know, all I'm saying is, this was an opportunity for black people to say, okay, we're united politically, and we're going to use strategy in order to try to gain, you know, what's best for us in the context of this hostile political environment or social climate. And instead, you know, what black people opted to do was they took the easy way out. It's all about me and my own individual interest. Or we splintered, you know, into different, you know, more, you know, easily acceptable identity groups. So now there is no collective black identity. There is none. It's just a bunch of different interest groups, man, doing the best that they can to get, you know, whatever they can get for themselves. And at the same time that all of that's happening, black people still at the bottom of the barrel, man. Mm-hmm. We ain't got no wealth to give to our children, male or female. And this is the shit that fucks me up, right? People, man, I don't give a fuck, man, if you making $100,000, bro. If you spending $100,000 a year, you still ain't got no wealth, dog. Mm-hmm. If all your bread is going to making sure that you looking good and you ain't able to say shit, you still ain't got nothing popping off. You still ain't able to pass shit to your kids. So all this high value shit, I mean, I ain't knocking it to a certain extent. I mean, you should be the best person you could possibly be within your environment. You should try to be the best you should be, okay? Career-wise, educational-wise, professional-wise, whatever. Okay, I'm not saying that you shouldn't. But at the end of the day, Black people still only got 5 G's to pass on to their kids, man. That's an income tax check for some of these motherfuckers out here, bro. How quick can you run through a motherfucking income tax check?
Faster than you could, that's gone in less than a week at best.
Motherfuckers gonna buy a new car. They're gonna take the tax money, man, and get a new car.
Get some new kicks.
Get some new shit. I'm gonna tell you what the average black woman gonna do. She gonna get some new hair weave, get her hair and her nails done, buy some clothes, gonna get some shit for the kids, get them some new Jordans or some shit like that. And if she got a daughter, she gonna get their hair and nails done. She might go get a fucking Ultima. She might go get a Nissan Ultima or some shit like that.
A used one at best.
What's a dude gonna do? He gonna go buy a PlayStation. He gonna get some Jordans. You know what I'm saying? He gonna get some Jordans. His income tax check ain't gonna be nothing like the single mama's income tax check.
No, she getting more, especially have 3 kids. What? I know one chick told me that she had like 1 or 2 kids. She already know what she's getting back every year, right off the bat.
Man, that earned income. And here's another thing that really fucks me up about people, man, that talk about like socialism and communism. Look, I'm not a communist, bro. Okay, I'm not. I'm not even a hardline socialist. But dude, let's look at it like this. Which one of you niggas gonna give up your Social Security, dog? Which one of you? I want to know which one of y'all who are so hardline, capitalistic, and libertarian to where you're gonna be like, fuck it, I don't want no Medicare when I get to 65. Fuck it. I'm willing to forego my fucking investment into the Social Security system because I don't believe in it. How many of y'all, if y'all get laid off, ain't gonna go take that damn unemployment check? I'm just asking. You so hardline anti-socialist and communist, which one of y'all gonna say, fuck it, I don't want no Medicare, Medicaid when I get 65? Who gonna say I don't want that Social Security check? None of you motherfuckers. I guarantee you're gonna be the first niggas in line to get the government cheese. Oh, I paid into it. I earned that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you getting the scrappings off that shit.
And look, man, I understand free riding as a concept. I don't like people to free ride either. Are there inefficiencies in the way the social programs are doled out? To some degree, yes. But the vast majority of social programs are not even allocated towards what you think. All this welfare, like the Queen shit, is largely a myth. Most of the money, man, in taxes, man, goes to defense, goes to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, dog. Not Section 8, not EBT. I mean, it just is what it is. Like, go look at the expenditures, man. Go look at the budget spending on these items, bro. But we'll talk about poor folk, whether they male or female. We got a problem with this shit. Now, 60 years ago, you couldn't even engage in this kind of conversation because, nigga, you wasn't able to get a government job.
Yeah, it's facts.
You might have been able to fight in the military, but after your black ass came home, you wasn't going to work for the government. You might have worked for the foundry or some shit like that. You might have, worked at a factory somewhere, but you wasn't gonna have a cush job at the government, and then now you some uppity nigga, you looking down at everybody else who live lower than you do, got less education you got. You wasn't about to do that, bro. I'm just being honest, man. Like, look, I get, and here's another kicker though. And I know I'm talking about black nationalism a lot, but some of the people y'all love the most is black conservatives in this space. You don't even know that most of the black conservatives are black nationalists.
Mm-hmm.
That's the shit that fucks me up. So while y'all looking at y'all calling this shit hotel, most of the dudes you idolize and honor, you know what I'm saying? Like you genuflecting before them, they're fucking black nationalists. I'm just being honest, bro. Like, I'm gonna do a show on Clarence Thomas, man. Clarence Thomas is a black nationalist, bro. If you don't believe me, now you might say, first of all, you might have a question about Jesse Jackson. Well, you know, he seemed like he wanted to be an integrationist. He didn't sound integrationist in 72, did he? He didn't sound like an integrationist in 72. But Clarence Thomas is a black nationalist, bro. So I'm willing, I want all you motherfucking uppity Negroes who love conservatism and shit like that. I want you to tell me, what is the thing that undergirds your black conservatism? Is it black nationalism? Probably not. I'm just being honest. What is it that is the foundation of your movement towards black conservatism? If it's just because you got a problem with black women, then you on some bullshit. I'm gonna keep it 100. Because it's deeper than that. If it's because you want to distance yourself from black people because you persnickety and shit, you feel like you better than them, then you fucked up. You on some coon shit. I'm just being honest. If you are calling for black people to be self-reliant, dependent, and to stand up and to do what every other group of people have done or can do, that's a whole different matter altogether. But if you just got this hatred for black folks because they make you look bad, then what's that saying about you? Well, these people make me look bad. You 1-2 generation removed Negro from the hood or the South. Man, I'm telling you, people don't have a long memory, bro. They have a short cultural memory. Very short, man. They don't read. They don't have any understanding of the social, political landscape out of which they grew. They're not tethered to anything other than neoliberalism. Whether it be right neoliberalism or left neoliberalism. Nothing is tethering them to any tradition or any ethnocentric cultural expression. So I'm gonna do a show on that, man, about that, man. And I want to see the black conservatives come up and tell me what they got a problem with. Well, that black nationalist crap, they're all commies. What about Clarence Thomas? Some of y'all, I mean, I would assume you got pictures of this motherfucker on your wall somewhere. Got keychains and pins and shit. Hey, I'm just saying, bruh. But anyway, man, look, I ain't mean for this to be long. I'm already an hour and 10 minutes in it. All I want to do was just come in and say, bruh, if you got 3 scholars, man, who are willing to come on the air and tell you that an ideal being expressed at a convention is black nationalism, 9 times out of 10, bruh, you need to say, okay, these guys are basically trying to give us information. They probably have researched it much further than I have. yeah, I could go do a Google search or whatever, and the SEO algorithm might spit out some things, but I'm going to try to figure out why it is that they're saying what they're saying, as opposed to just trying to refute what they're saying. Because I'm right and you're wrong. I'm talking about 3 dudes who spent over 2 decades studying some shit. You gonna tell us we're all wrong? We each of us don't know what we're talking about. Hey, bro, I'm done with it, man. You got anything else to say, Chaos, man?
That's it. I got my own little stream to do, so I just come up here to get my check and ask. Not many questions, but that's all. Thank you.
So, all right, man. Peace out.
Peace out.
Peace out. So, if anybody else wants to contest what it is, all I want to do is to demonstrate that Black nationalism ain't necessarily about having a Black nation like the Nation of Islam is calling for when they demand in one of their points, in their, manifesto, that we need a minerally rich land of our own where we can just independently and autonomously, have laws and, rules and procedures and institutions without the interference from white folks. That's not necessarily what Black nationalism is about, man. In many of its variants, it's about Black people, man, coming together and deciding what their political future is going to look like through their own agency. And we had an opportunity in 1972 to say, okay, you know what? It's not about the head Negro in charge. It ain't about one group being better than the other. It ain't about, men being better than women, or, working, to make them slaves or to oppress them or to subject them to chauvinism, which is how they portray it. And ain't about, having a commie state where, we making sure that Black folks, just get to live high off the hog and get welfare checks. It's about us saying, look, let's be strategic and have a plan and how we deal with the environment in which we live. Let's act like we are civilized and like we care about governing ourselves. We love each other. The society at large is telling us we ain't shit, but we don't believe that. Like Jesse Jackson said back in 72, it ain't that, we got big egos. It's like we don't have enough ego. We don't think highly enough of ourselves. But that was 72. He changed his tune in 84. Then it became the Rainbow Coalition, the push and push. It came, to dealing with everybody else and their issues, but it was all about trying to get more, I guess, more heft, more numbers. That would be my guess. Trying to reach across, boundaries and lines. But anyway, go back to, arguing and complaining about women and shit. I'll holler at y'all later, bro. Peace.